Hello everyone. Thank you for expressing interest in becoming a member of the Roger Williams Law Review. This presentation will teach you everything you need to know about Law Review, eligibility for membership, and the write-on. You'll learn exactly what skills you need to participate in the write-on competition. This presentation will be broken down into 4 parts. The first part of the presentation will cover general information about what Law Review is, what Law Review does, and the responsibilities of membership. The second section will discuss how to apply for membership through the write-on process. The third section of the presentation will discuss how to craft your comment portion of the write-on. This is also known as the writing portion of the write-on competition. And finally, the fourth section will discuss how to complete the citation checking portion of the write-on competition. So first of all, what exactly is Law Review? Well, the Roger Williams University Law Review is a student-run scholarly journal. The Law Review publishes articles written by lawyers, judges, and other professionals in the legal field, as well as student pieces. We publish a minimum of 3 editions per year: the National Edition, the Justice for All Edition, and the Rhode Island Edition. In addition to those 3, the Law Review will sometimes also publish a separate symposium edition or a special edition. So let's talk a little bit more about each edition and what it covers. The National Edition publishes articles and comments related to national legal issues. The Rhode Island Edition publishes Rhode Island case surveys, articles, and comments, all specifically related to Rhode Island legal issues. And the Justice for All Edition covers topics to advance social justice in different fields. The Justice for All Edition selects a different topic to cover each year. There are many benefits to membership on Law Review, but let's talk about a few of the primary benefits of membership. To note, employers are always particularly interested in interviewing members of Law Review due to the unique skill sets members gain. But in addition to those skill sets, there are a few benefits that are of particular interest. First, you can receive up to 2 academic credits per year, both your 2L and 3L years. You are not obligated to take these credits. You may elect to take 0 credits, 1 credit, or 2 credits each year. That means you can complete a total of 4 academic credits during your 2 years on Law Review. In addition, you will complete your writing requirement for graduation by drafting a comment your 2L year. All Law Review members will draft a comment during their 2L year, and this will completely fulfill your writing requirement. Lastly, all students will have a survey published. All students will write a Rhode Island case survey for publication in the Rhode Island edition. After that, you will also have the opportunity to submit your comment for publication both at this Law Review and other journals. So you may be curious, what exactly would your responsibilities on Law Review be? Well, your responsibilities will change based on the year and the semester. You can plan to commit approximately 5 to 12 hours per week for your 2L year, and probably a little bit less than that your 3L year. As a 2L member, you will have 3 primary responsibilities. All students will first site check articles and comments for publication 1 semester. One of the semesters of your 2L year will be devoted entirely to this site checking process. All articles and comments submitted for publication in Law Review must be site checked. This includes a process of checking the citation for its accuracy per the Blue Book, and also checking the source to make sure that it correctly supports the citation as noted in the article. The other semester of your 2L year, you will research a legal topic and write your comment. This can be a legal topic of your choosing, and we will help you both through topic development and the writing process. Finally, all 2L members must write a Rhode Island case survey over winter break for publication in the Rhode Island edition. As a 3L member, you will have a choice as to responsibilities. General members will site check articles and comments for publication throughout their entire 3L year. Students may also elect instead to run for board positions. The board administers all operations of Law Review and runs the entire publication. If selected for a board position, you will work on the board all year instead of completing site checking assignments. Great! Now that you're interested, who is eligible to join? Well, all full-time first-year students in good academic standing are invited to participate in a process called the write-on. All part-time students who have completed a minimum of 29 credits by the close of this semester are also invited to participate in the write-on. You may only apply as a first-year student or as a part-time student who has completed 29 credits in the spring semester. So, what exactly is the write-on? Well, there are no automatic invitations onto the law review at Roger Williams University. Instead, eligible students are invited to write on to the law review. This write-on is a competition which is graded anonymously. Students will submit their write-on materials through Bridges. Thereafter, students will be notified via telephone within 2 weeks after law review receives student grades from Student Finance and Records. This usually occurs in July. We'll explain more details throughout the rest of the presentation. Now that you know the basics, let's talk more about the write-on.
For this presentation, I'll be going over 6 broad topics. First, I'll talk to you about what is the write-on competition. Second, how is the write-on competition scored or evaluated? Third, how can students prepare for the write-on competition? Fourth, how can students craft their comment for the write-on competition? Fifth, how may students allocate their time? And sixth, the resources available to students throughout the write-on competition. So what is the write-on competition? Well, the write-on competitions gives eligible students the opportunity to become members of the Roger Williams University Law Review. And when I say eligible, that typically means a student in good academic standing who has completed their first year of law school or at least 29 credits. So the write-on process consists of 2 parts, a written essay portion and a site checking portion. So primarily in this presentation, we'll be going over the written essay portion, but we'll talk a little bit about the site checking portion as well. For the write-on competitions, students will receive 3 main components. You'll receive a comment prompt, which is what your argument will be based on for the write-on, a source packet, which is what you'll rely on exclusively to support your arguments, and a site checking worksheet. How is the write-on competition scored? 50% of your write-on competition score will be your grade point average. And this is the grade point average that you'll have at the end of your academic year. So once you receive your grades around June or July, that will be your grade point average that will be used in compiling your final score for the write-on competition. 30% of your grade will come from the writing assignment, and I'll explain to you more what the writing assignment consists of. But for now, the writing assignment is graded by the editor-in-chief and the notes and comments team. 20% of your grade will be the site checking assignment. The site checking assignment will be explained thoroughly in another presentation, but for now, that is graded by the editor-in-chief and the executive articles editors. So what do we evaluate when we read submissions on the writing assignment? So the comments will be evaluated for the strength of the analysis, the organization of your paper, the readability of your paper, proper punctuation, grammar, and spelling, and footnote compliance with Blue Book rules. When you actually participate in the write-on competition, you'll get an instruction packet telling you what you need to focus on in terms of formatting your paper and how to structure your analysis. So don't worry about the details right now, but be sure to pay attention when you're going through your instruction packets, which guidelines you must follow before you submit your paper. Now I'll be going over how to prepare for the write-on competition. I want to go over the write-on procedures. This is a very important part of the write-on competition. You need to understand how to get access to the competition, how to properly submit the write-on materials, and the important restrictions that you need to pay attention to make sure that you don't get disqualified. So first, packet availability. So the write-on competition is different from the moot court competition in terms of you don't have to do anything in person to receive the packet. The write-on competition will have its own Bridges site, and all eligible students will be added to this site, so no sign up is required to participate. And the write-on instructions and materials will be posted on the site and become available once the competition opens. As for the submissions, students will have 16 days to complete and submit all write-on requirements, and all your submissions will be anonymous, and the write-on will also be graded anonymously. Instructions will be posted on how to properly submit completed materials, so make sure you read those carefully. As for restrictions, students may only use the materials provided in the packet and refer to your Blue Book when you're going through this write-on process. So, of course, you can reference your Blue Book to see how you can structure your footnotes and when you're doing your citation assignment. But other than that, students may not conduct outside research or discuss or obtain assistance from anybody else during the competition. And students may not directly contact current law review members for help. We will be providing a form on Bridges for those with questions or issues about the write-on packet itself, but we cannot answer any questions about the substance of your argument. Now I'll be going over how you may compose your comment for the write-on competition. So what is a comment? A comment is a short scholarly paper that discusses or analyzes a novel legal issue, case, or development of law. For the write-on, students will be tasked with writing a comment based on the prompt in the competition packet. Students will have full discretion on which side of the argument they want to make based on the assigned prompt, and your comment will consist mostly of that argument. Included in the materials for the write-on competition is the source packet. So the source packet will contain a mix of primary and secondary sources to help you craft your argument. These sources may include cases, statutes or regulations, law review articles, magazine, newspaper, or other periodical articles. Because the write-on competition is a closed universe, the source packet must contain enough materials for students to make a compelling argument on each side. With that said, the source packet will be lengthy. Usually it'll run about 150 to 200 pages. Once you get the source packet, of course, you'll have to read it. And a lot of people are generally discouraged when they see a 150 page to 200 page source packet. But don't let this discourage you. Many students have participated in the write-on competition and they have survived. And there's specific ways you can actually go about reading the packet to make it more manageable for you. So what I recommend is that you dedicate 1 to 2 days to reading the packet and taking diligent notes. You can read the materials in any order you'd like. It's best to start with the relevant case law, statute, or constitutional provision that the prompt may be based on, so that you can educate yourself about the relevant area of law before reviewing the secondary sources. After you've finished reviewing and reading the source packet, it is now time to choose your stance. So this is where you're going to choose the side of the argument that you want to make. So you can choose your stance based on different factors, and it's up to you ultimately how or why you want to choose a particular stance. But these are a couple ways you can kind of come about which stance you would like to choose. So you can look at if the materials in the packets best support a certain stance. So if most of the materials support a specific viewpoint, then you can go along with that argument to make it easier for you. Or you can base your stance off of one particular viewpoint that stood out to you, something that's very interesting and you think that you would want to argue in the paper. And then lastly is just having enough facts and case law or statutes that can support your argument in a logical way can be another way that you can base your decision on which stance to choose. Once you choose your stance, then you could form a coherent and concise statement of your argument, and that will serve as your thesis statement. An example of a concise thesis statement is this. This comment will argue that the Ninth Amendment was not meant to extend constitutional protections to unenumerated rights because ... A short and sweet and clear thesis statement helps everybody who's reading your paper. It helps you focus on what your argument is. And overall, it's always important to have a thesis statement in your introduction paragraph. The subsequent paragraphs should focus on providing information and analysis that ultimately supports your thesis statement. Now it's time to focus on how to structure your comment. How you must lay out your comment will be included in the write-on competition instruction packet. But in general, these are the main ways we would like to see people format their write-on comment. And these are the correct ways to format it. So, your comment cannot exceed 10 pages double-spaced. It must be written in 12-point Times New Roman. You must have 1-inch margins, and all your citations should be in the footnotes. It should not be in endnotes, or there should not be any textual citations. And those footnotes must be in 10-point font and be single spaced. The title of your paper should appear on the first page of your comment, and all pages must be numbered in the lower right-hand corner. This is how you can structure your write-on overall. Now, you can divide and subhead your comment however you see fit, but in general, these are the main sections that should be included in your comment. So I broke it down into 4 major parts you should split your comment into. First is, of course, your introduction, and that should be 1 to 2 paragraphs. Within that introduction, you want to state the question, which will be your prompt. And then you want to set forth your thesis statement and then give your reader a roadmap of your argument. So, for example, you can put in part 1, this comment will address, in part 2, this comment will discuss, so on, so forth. And then you want to have a legal and factual background section. So for this section, you want to assume that your reader is not familiar with the legal issue within the prompt and provide enough background information to contextualize your subsequent argument. This is exactly how you approach your final exams for law school in general. You always want to assume that your reader is not knowledgeable. That way you're not too conclusive about the topics you discuss. And then you'll move on to your analysis section. The majority of your comments should be dedicated to this section. It should not be dedicated to your legal and factual background because we really want to see how you can analyze the materials we put in the packet and how you'll make your argument based off of that. So this section is devoted to establishing and justifying your thesis. And lastly, you'll have a conclusion, and that should be 1 to 2 paragraphs, and that's to succinctly restate your thesis and briefly summarize your supporting argument. Now we're going to talk about how you can allocate your time so you can successfully complete your write-on materials. Remember, for your write-on, you have 16 days to complete all of your requirements. When you're creating your schedule for completing all of these requirements, be mindful of all the other obligations in your life. For example, if you have work, summer classes, or family obligations, you're going to want to create a schedule around those obligations and try to pace yourself so you can complete the write-on in those 16 days. You should complete your schedule around when you complete your citation worksheet, read the comment source packet, and write the actual comment. Now I'm going to go over how you can allocate your time when you are completing your write-on requirements. Now these are just suggestions, and you should always try to create your schedule based on whatever works for you in your learning and writing style. So first I'm going to start off with the idea of when you should complete your citation worksheet. Many students start this first thing when they get their write-on materials so that they can allocate the rest of their time to writing the comment. You can complete the comment in the citation worksheet in any order, but just remember to complete both of them. Now, tackling the packet. Students typically reserve 1 to 2 days to read throughout the entire packet. Some read the packet and take notes as they go. Some read the whole packet while they take minimal notes. Your strategy should always align with your learning and comprehension style because the goal is to understand the sources so you can make a compelling argument. As for drafting, students typically dedicate at least a week in which they spend about 5 to 8 hours a day drafting, editing, and proofreading their comment. You can use any amount of days within the 16 days to complete your comment, but be sure to give yourself enough time to edit your paper and give yourself enough time to complete your other write-down requirements. It's best to try to outline your comment to make sure that it is organized and coherent for your readers. As you revise and review your comment, be sure to close the gaps in your reasoning and improve the persuasiveness of your arguments. Finally, I'll be going over the resources you'll have available to you throughout the write-on competition. While you cannot conduct outside research to support the substantive arguments in your comment, there are resources available for helping you navigate the write-on competition process. Students can raise any issues with the source packet, especially including formatting errors, to the attention of the Law Review Board of Editors through the use of the Forums tab on the Bridges site. Additional information and resources can be found through the Roger Williams University Law Library's Write-On Guide, and it's available at the link provided in this PowerPoint. The Write-On Guide has a list of books, websites, and articles that provides tips on how to craft a successful write-on submission. And with that, good luck.
This next section of the presentation will cover the site checking assignment portion of the write-on.
So we're just going to go over what the site checking assignment is, how to do the site checking assignment, and what are some tips for the site checking assignment. Before we start, I just want to go over just the Blue Book and an overview of it. So first we have the white pages, and these are the pages that you're going to want to use when you are citing for law review. So the blue pages are for practitioners, so when you're in practice, you'll use the blue pages. But the white pages are for academics like you and like me who are part of the law review. So this is just an overview of some rules that are important to use in the white pages, as well as some tables that are very useful. So one thing that is important to know that is that for academic writing, we use footnotes. We do not use in-text citations. So this might be a little bit different than the writing that you've done for legal practice. So this just shows an overview of the basic citation structure. So as you can see, there is a signal, the source, and then parenthetical information if necessary. So that is sort of your basic citation structure for a case, and that is what it looks like when it would be in a footnote. So now that I've talked about just the overview of the Blue Book, now I will talk a little bit about what the site checking assignment actually looks like for the write-on process. So there will be 10 total prompts. So 5 will ask you to review a given source and to create a Blue Book compliance citation for them. And so this type of assignment looks like the type of citation work that you'll have to do when you're writing your comment if you are on the law review. And then 5 of those prompts will provide you with a citation, which will have a set amount of errors, and you will have to identify what those errors are and provide which rule is applicable. So this part of the assignment looks like when you become part of the law review, what your site checking duties would look like. And then I just included a funny quote of Richard Posner about the Blue Book, just to remind you that, there's a little bit of humor in it. So now that I've talked about an overview, this is just an example of what to expect. So this would be sort of what that first half, the first 5 look like. So you'll get a source, and then you're told to cite a sentence from the source. and then you'll have to come up with the citation that is at the bottom there. So you'll have 5 of similar prompts. This is a case, obviously, but you might have other types of sources such as statutes, law review articles, etc. And then, so this is just another example of the second half of what this citation exercise will look like. So here we have a law review article, and then we have a citation that you're given that is incorrect. And then you'll just have to correct that citation to what it should be. So as you can see, this one was missing the author's full name, the title was not in italics, the journal name was not in small caps, and the journal name was not abbreviated. So those are errors that you would have to identify. And then when you approach the citation exercise, it's just, these are just some general tips for success, just through trial and error. Me personally, what I've found, I didn't know at first when I started, and these are things that were, these were rules that I found helpful to know, and maybe that you wouldn't necessarily know just right off the bat. So obviously, like we already talked about, do use the white pages and not the blue pages. Just important to note for the difference between law review and when you're in practice. And then another cool tip is is the rule of 5. So this is for cases and statutes. So in law review footnotes, a short form for a case can be used if it's already cited in the same footnote or is cited in full or short form, including id, in the preceding 5 footnotes. So you can kind of see an example on the left of what that looks like. As you can see, they just had to recite it on the 7th footnote because that intervening citation broke up the original citation, which called for them to add another one. Just another important point is to use footnotes, not in-text citations. So again, this is just different than the law review. This writing is different than what you would have experienced for LP. So you're going to use footnotes and do your citations in the footnotes. And remember to use the typefaces for law review articles. So, for example, case names usually are in italics or underlined if you're a practitioner, but for law review, you do not italicize or underline citations. And then just make sure to abbreviate. So there's really helpful tables in the back that go through abbreviations. So if you see any of these types of terms, anything that basically looks like it might be too long, just check those tables in the back to see if you should be abbreviating. And then just some more tips. So there are preferred publishers that you should be using, and they will always be listed in order of preference in the back of the Blue Book. So for example, the Supreme Court, US is the preferred publisher. The Court of Appeals is the F series, the Rhode Island Supreme Court is A, and the United States Code is USC. So just make sure, because on Westlaw or Lexis, it will give you multiple publishers, and just make sure that you're using the preferred publisher. And then finally, these are just some pro-level tips. So if you're citing footnotes, which, might not seem super intuitive of how to cite a footnote because it's not necessarily on a page, it's within the footnote. You're going to want to do the number of the page that the footnote appears on, as well as n dot and the number that the footnote is. If you're citing statutes and there's multiple sections that you're citing, use 2 section symbols, not just one, and that will indicate that you're citing multiple sections. And then one last, just very general tip is if you're really stuck and can't find a particular rule, the index is very helpful. And obviously just make sure you're using the white pages. And then also on the inside front cover of your blue book, there's a quick reference if you just need to see what the general form of citations are for law review.
This concludes the write-on presentation. If you have questions prior to the write-on, please feel free to email us. If you have questions during the write-on, you can contact us via Bridges on the anonymous forum.